Okay, just as you're crossing. Okay. If this is working, then you guys should be able to see me. Yep. All right. Yeah, I know. I didn't announce that I was going to do this. And I'm sorry that I didn't announce that I was going to do this. Normally I give you guys some heads up, but this stuff just showed up and I didn't want to wait another day before doing it. So, wrong pipe. We're doing it now. Um, so, yeah, I am doing yet another live stream. I got two packages to open up this time. One box, one package, and both of them happen to be being done by sent by LK Chen again. Please excuse the people in the background; they got work to do. I probably should have warned them that I was about to do this, but I kind of really let them know that I was about to do this. But yeah, just got two packages, one here, one here, and we're gonna go through both of them. Again, I have to thank LK Chen for sending them because I am pretty sure that's who I got this from. No one else really sends me anything, so I'm just going to jump right into it. Oh, and by the way, I know the sound might sound a bit weird. I'm not using this mic over here. I'm just using the camera mic because I know when I move around, the sound's going to dip because I'm not close to it. And I want to make sure that you guys are able to actually hear me when I move around. So I'm just using the camera mic, which, yeah, I know, it's not ideal, but it's the best that I can work with, you know, for the circumstances. I really need to get myself a better mic, to be honest. Maybe I should get like one of those like Yetis or Blue mics or whatever they call those things. So we're gonna start with this one first. I still got that drink stuck in my throat. And we're just gonna jump right into it. Right into it. I am not too worried about damaging the object within, because for one thing I know it can take it, and two, I'm not cutting in that deep. Man, that thing is really stuck in my throat. Fatty's saying it's 2:48 a.m. Well, two things. One, it's actually 11 over here, 11 p.m. And if it was 2:48 a.m. over here, I'd still be awake. I don't know how often I've stated this to people. You gotta be kidding me. What is this? Is this the... What is this? Okay, now I thought I knew what this was, and now wow. Okay then. We got something. Whoa. Okay, let me finish my thought. And what's up, Fatty? But yeah, I'm a night owl. I don't know how often I've expressed this on this channel, but I've always been a bit of a night owl. Not a bit. I have been a night owl. I usually don't go to bed until like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, if that's the time I go to bed. I've been this way for as long as I can remember. Even as a kid, having to wake up to go to school, it was always hard for me to go to bed at night. Like, you know, you go to bed at like, your parents send you to bed like 8, 9 o'clock. I couldn't fall asleep until it was close to 12. Sometimes, especially in high school, I'd be up until 1, only to wake up at freaking 6 to hurry up and rush off to school. And then by the time I was living on my own, I was already working night jobs. And I wouldn't be in bed, like actually falling asleep until around 6. This has just been me. Not to say that I haven't worked jobs over the years that I've actually had to wake up really early in the morning and then sleep, you know, really early in the evening. I had to work jobs like that, but I'm a night owl by nature, it seems. It's just something that I'm used to. But because I've had to force myself to be up at all manner of hours, depending on what's going on, I've now ended up developing an ability where I can pretty much fall asleep whenever I need to. So even if it's during the middle of the freaking day, as long as I'm in a nice quiet spot where there isn't much light coming in, yeah, I'll be out. And then 6 o'clock in the evening, I'm up. In fact, like right now, even though it's like close to midnight, I'm up. So, but yeah, this is the first thing that I've opened up, and I don't know what this is. I mean, I know it's a sword. I mean, I know you guys are looking at me, it's a sword, idiot. But This looks, at first glance, I'm thinking, okay, is this a Flying Phoenix in a leather sheath? And this is a sheath. This is most certainly a sheath, because see that? That's not a scabbard. It bends. Okay, it's not a Flying Phoenix, because the Flying Phoenix doesn't have a handle like this and a handguard like this. So now it's making me think, okay, White Ark. The White Ark has this configuration. But then why would they put it in a leather sheath? What is this? Is this a prototype? Only one to find out. Nice leather sheath, by the way. Okay, that is really thin. Oh, okay. Now I know what this is. Now I know what this is. I just forgot all about it. This is their steel sparring sword. Like, you know, we got the nylon synthetics that came in, which I still need to review. Yeah, there's no edge. This is the steel sparring one because it's got a blunted tip. See that? Nice rounded blunted tip so you don't end up skewering, you know, the person that you're sparring with. And the edges are nice and flat. See, I'm running my thumb along it. I'm not worried about getting cut. It's really thin though, but I'm guessing that's, I guess, to help with the weight. It's configured a lot like a White Ark though. Like, this is a really long blade, so this is like White Ark levels, I'm thinking. You know what? Let me look it up because I want to see how long this thing is supposed to be. So I'm going to take a quick look online. Okay, so that's, come on, load. And other weapons. So we got Sparring Handian, Sparring White Ark. Yeah, that's what this is. That's exactly what this is. Sparring White Ark, blade length 30. Yeah, that's exactly what this is. Long blade length and everything. Nice. So, you know, if I decide to go up against somebody else with a steel trainer, this would fit the bill. And it weighs very similar, you know, say for the really thin balance points, like right there. Normally, you notice I'm touching this with my bare skin. I normally do not do this with real swords. And this, I will be wiping my fingerprints off because I'm pretty sure they made this with high carbon steel. It's just to say it's spring steel. But I don't think it's folded steel or anything like that. But
we're gonna take the Xbox One upstairs.
So, sorry, they're playing games. Yeah, usually when you're dealing with trainers like this, beaters like this, they are supposed to take a lot more abuse, so you don't have to. You still need to take care of them. You still need to maintain them, obviously, but it's not like, you know, you have to worry so much about rusting, you know, so to speak. Like these, you still want to take care of these for sparring purposes, but it's not like they're gonna fall apart on you as much. You can abuse these more because we're made for harsh use. It's made for constant use. These are sparring weapons. So, yeah, the balance point's where I expected it to be. Like right about there. It's good, really good. Feels pretty good in the hand. Don't have my scale with me right now to check the weight, but I can tell you right now, this is very light, very light. I'm looking for to see if they have the weight on the website, but they don't. Not that I can tell. No. Oh, no, there it is. 1 pound, 5.3 ounces. So yeah, that is very light. Very, very light. Jesus. But the balance is pretty good. So yeah, you can do a lot of sparring with this, you know. I'll test these out in the vest too, because I mean, obviously the protective equipment is supposed to stand up with some stuff, right? I'll let you out later. Cat's complaining. It is rather nice that they have a leather scabbard for this though, to keep the blade protected. You don't see that a lot with sparring weapons. Usually it's just a bare blade and that's it. The fact that they gave it a leather sheath, it's a nice touch, I think. So it's well made. Nothing's rattling, nothing's loose. The grip is nice and tight. Feels good in the hand. I really don't have anything to complain about right now. I mean, I'd have to use it. I don't know anybody with a steel trainer that lives near me, though. The only people I know, one's living in a different country and the other's living in a different state. So it's going to be a little tricky trying to figure that out. That cat, you really want to be out, don't you? Probably going to have to let her out. Okay, so, all right. I lost the chat. Oops. Sorry about that. Give me a moment while I get back on track here. I probably should have waited until I was a little bit ready to do this, but I'm doing this now. Tease with tease. There it is. Okay, boom. I just clicked on the wrong thing. So, yeah, that's what this is. Nice sparring blade. Scabbard seems to be decently well made. Not seeing any loose stitching. Hopefully it will not fall apart over time. We will see. I recently saw Skull's video on making yourself a scabbard or sheath and how it's not easy to do. So it's nice that this is able to come with one that is decently made. Yeah. It'd be nice to take this to its paces when I, if I can find somebody else with a steel trainer to go up against. But I'm sure I can find someone around here. I'm sure I will. So, that's the first one. Now we got this one. We got this one to go through. All right. I am going to confess. My light turned off. Damn it. I'm going to have to recharge it. Oh, well. But yeah, I'm going to confess. I already know what's in here. Not because they told me, but because when this first showed up, it was a little bit peeking out the side. And just by touching it, I could instantly, oh, I know what this is. This is the handguard, and I remembered that they had something with a handguard like this. So, yeah, I am pretty sure I know exactly what's in this box. Still want to look at it anyway, right? Still want to see what it is. You guys don't know what it is. I got a good idea what it is. And even though I do, I still want to see it up close. Though I have to also confess that I wasn't expecting on getting this one because I considered it to be very similar to another one that I already have. And I mean, I'm probably wrong, but I was thinking, okay, I already got one similar to this, and it's probably going to handle, the same as the other one. So there's no reason for me to get this one. But nope, apparently I got it. So now we got to take a look at it. Crack this here open. And once again, so I was wrong. I didn't know what was in this one. I was completely wrong. I'm loving the fact that I was wrong, though. I was sort of wrong about this. I thought, because it was easily bendable, that it was another synthetic sparring one. And I'm like, I already got the synthetics. Why did they send me another one? And I was half right, half wrong. This was a sparring weapon, but it wasn't one of the synthetics. This I was completely wrong. I know what this one is, too. And now that I know what this one is, I guess well, you'll see in a moment. What I was worried about earlier about testing this, I shouldn't have worried. Oh my God. Let's see. Cut through this. And Mini Dwarf, hello. Thank you for the question. And you are asking, what is a good company to get a practice synthetic gin or dole from? Honestly, I don't really know. I mean, I've seen a lot of synthetics over the years, and there was this, I don't know if you saw a video that I made way, way back on finding decent Chinese sparring weapons. There's this black dowel, this black synthetic dowel that I have, which had a nice good heft to it, and okay, she really wants to be let out. Oh, you got it? All right, thank you. It's got a good heft to it, good balance, good weight. But I picked that one up, I think, from Amazon or something. It wasn't from a specific company. I do believe that Cult of Athena has a few synthetics that you could get your hands on, but as far as like naming a specific company, I couldn't say. I mean, I could also say LK Chen, those two white nylon ones that I recently handled. I like those. I gotta do a review on those soon, but I like those. They got a good, decent weight. But those are the Gen. I don't know if they have synthetic dull. I wouldn't be surprised if they did, but I don't think that they do. See, I see sparring white art, protective guards, double hand sparring Dien, sparring Han Dien. Yeah, I don't think they have those. I'm gonna do one quick search on Cult of Athena to see if they have the ones that I'm thinking of. Give me a moment. And actually, I do have a couple of the black ones upstairs. I just don't feel like going up there right now. Let me go through all of these. Okay, so that's a trainer. That's that. Other weird Chinese weapons, but they're not what we're looking for. Okay. Polypropylene training butterfly knives. The Dien Chinese practice sword, which I don't recommend. I consider that one a little too light and floppy. I like my practice swords to have at least some type of weight to them, so guys, to try to get them close to swinging around the real thing, you know, so you don't have a false sense of what they're like. Okay, they got a Chinese training doll here. It's not one I've handled though, so I couldn't say anything about it. It's similar to one that I have, but it's not exactly the same. But it might be decent. I don't know. There's no ratings on it. So I honestly can't say with any real certainty where to get a good practice training doll from. The Dien, there's a bunch. And again, I would recommend the LKChen one simply because I like the balance and the weight on those. And I heard that Purple Heart Armory, I think that they might have improved on theirs. The older model I have, I won't say I'm not a fan of it, but I felt it could be improved. I felt the blade was a little too floppy, and the weight distribution was a little off, though I did like the construction of it. The Purple Heart Armory construction of that particular gen was really, really good. The overall quality of it. I just thought that the balance and the way the blade behaved could have been improved. The LKChen synthetics, I like those. Though I will say one other caveat I would give is the handguards, of course, follow the way that they make their Hanjian, so the grips are smaller than a lot of people would be used to, and the blades are longer than a lot of people would be used to. So there is that caveat. Anyway, let's go through this, and I'm sure you guys now know what this one is. Yeah, this is another one of their sparring Hanjian, but this is one of the odder ones. The Hanjian that actually has a handguard that looks somewhat similar to European rapiers and side swords, and along with a blade that would remind somebody of a rapier or side sword. The blade is very similar to the White Arc, actually, in both its weight, its thickness, the profile, its thin profile, the rounded tip, the length, it's all there. The balance point, I am pretty sure, is going to be a bit different. It's going to be much closer to the handle because you got this big heavy piece right there. So I'm quite certain, yeah, this is going to handle a lot more rapier-like than what I'm used to. I'm used to the point of balance being at least like up to here. You know, like 5-6 inches. The farthest maybe 8 inches out, but that's extreme. Usually it's about like 4 or 5 inches out. This is really close to the hand. I can tell right away, just moving this around. My techniques, it's funny, when you handle swords and you're used to using them a certain way, techniques suddenly become, they become off. Me holding this right now, the techniques that I'm used to using feel a little weird with this weapon because the weight is so much closer to my hand. I'm used to pivoting from the point of balance, see, and I'm used to the point of balance being right there, like right around here. Now that it's closer to here, I'm, you know, it's kind of throwing off a little bit where I expect things to go. I mean, I got great point control now, but the way I want to defend and ward off is, it's just a bit different. Quite a bit different. So there's going to be a lot more thrusting with this. Like I can see right now, there isn't going to be as much cutting. I'm not going to be doing blows. I'm not going to be cutting with this, except maybe to ward off and parry. but I'm mostly going to be employing the thrust. So this makes this very rapier-like. There's a certain dude in Indiana who I'm pretty sure is salivating at this right now. But yeah, it is interesting, to say the least. I don't really have much in the way of rapier training, so, or fencing, you know, like modern fencing. Because fencing just simply means sword fighting, actually. But I mean, that's not the way we use that term these days, but that's what it originally meant. The overall construction's nice, though. You know, one thing that makes me kind of makes me wonder. Okay, you see the handguard, right? You see how similar to a European rapier this is, but and by the way, these things did exist in China a long time ago. They just stopped making them this way. Don't ask me why. I'm not exactly sure. I'm guessing it was just a cultural thing. But just looking at the chat, yeah, this particular sparring gen, I'm noticing how the handguard extends out. See how far that goes? I wonder, I mean, granted, I don't think they're going to do it, but it would be nice if they made a den, whether a sparring one or a real one, that employed this handguard, just not, you know, with that. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you asked them to special order and make a real version of this, sharp edges and all, they probably would. Though I'm expecting that if they did, the blade's probably going to be closer to a Flying Phoenix blade than this, since that's what the actual swords looked like back then. But I suspect, I mean, not I suspect, I'm sorry, I would be interested in seeing what it would be like if you made a blade with this handle and this handguard, but you take this part out and just put this on the other side. Like, just have this cross section, you know, that handguard, that longer handguard with a Flying Phoenix blade, or if you wanted a white arc, and how that would do. I have a feeling that particular sword would sell like crazy. It would be a very unique looking gen, but it wouldn't necessarily be untraditional. Like, I am pretty certain there must be some examples or older models with a cross section like that, with a handguard like that. It's just a very simple one, you know? I would use it. I would. Have I even talked to you guys about what my dream sword would be? Like, you know, if I could get these guys to like sit down and listen to like what would you want? What type of sword would you actually want to be your personal piece? I don't know if I ever talked to you guys about that, but if I did, I have in mind exactly what I want. Yes, it is going to be a Chinese gen, but it would be made with a specific length, specific width, specific thickness, and a specific type of handguard and grip. All of them which exist, but not all of them on one sword. I really am hoping to find a manufacturer that can put them all on one sword. So, but yeah, to get back to this, I'm kind of rambling. This is definitely a training one. This is their training Hanjian. And, you know, they're sparring one, round the tip and everything. But it is very rapier-like. This here puts so much weight toward the back of the hand that, you know, like, I'm just feeling my wrist just like trying to compensate, you know, for the way the weight is distributed, so I can pull off the techniques that I'm used to. Like this, I'm like, It's a little weird, but that's the nature of this thing, you know. This would I could easily see somebody used to rapier fighting or like modern fencing, whatever, picking this up and going, "Ooh, I like this." Meanwhile, this one here, this sparring white arc. See, now, the minute I pick it up, yes, that's what I'm used to. See, now I got the weight exactly where I want it, because this is what I'm used to. So I can do my ward-offs and thrusts and stuff like that. You know, boom, 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 back. It's all there. It's all there. It's all there. All there. I know where the weight is. I can feel like that's what I'm used to, see? So it's going to be interesting playing around with these two. And it might give me a more insight into why people who do rapier fighting or rapier fencing and are doing, you know, HEMA type work with that, why they got the techniques that they have. This is going to give me a little bit more insight into that because of the way it's weighted. So, yeah, these are the two surprises that I got from LK Chen. And I can honestly say, I'm surprised. I wasn't expecting these at all. And what I thought was in the box wasn't what was in the box. So kudos to that. This was generally a nice surprise. I will say both of these are very nicely made, very well made, as far as I can tell, because nothing's rattling or shaking or loose yet. The hand protection on this, it's pretty utilitarian. This is a very just utilitarian polish that they got on here. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just, you know, a plate of metal that is going to protect your hand. None more, none less. Everything is solidly built. Grip is tight, nothing's loose. The steel, for as simple as it looks, does look nice. Again, I do like this handguard here. I'm really interested in seeing if they can make a sword. They're not going to, but I would really be interested in a sword with this handguard, just without this, and then with a blade like at least like the Flying Phoenix, or if you needed to make it like the White Ark, then make it like the White Ark, and then how that would fare. Considering how long this handle is, it's like a hand and a half. So, sheesh. You know what? I'm just gonna say this right now. If they took this handle, right? This handle with this length, with this handguard, just without the disc, just make this handguard exactly like that, and give it the White Arc blade, and you gave it the skull, I bet you he'd be a very happy dude. And I'm only saying this because how he reacted when he first got his hands on the White Arc. He really liked that sword. And I remember him telling me at the time, what would make this perfect is if I could use it in two hands, because it's purely a one-handed sword, despite how long that blade is. But it was just perfectly balanced, and it was so sharp. Like, he just fell in love with how easily it went through the tatami mats. And he's like, what would make this perfect is if it just had a longer handle. This right here. This has that handle, and it has a handguard that he would be more used to. It's not as long as a typical longsword. This is actually as long as what I'm used to. This is the longest length I've seen for a Chinese gen. And it's still really on the thin side, but at least it gives him some type of hand protection that he would be a little bit more comfortable with. You give this handle with a White Arc blade, I think he'd be very happy with that. Hell, I would be too, you know, to be honest. So, but I don't think they're going to make that because that's not exactly historically accurate as far as I know. So yeah, can't wait to test these out. These are going to be fun to work with. That's going to be an interesting video. I thought at first I was going to be making a video where it would just be the protective chest covering with the nylon pieces, but now I'm thinking we're going to have to throw these in as well. And I do know somebody lives near me who is more used to rapier type weapons. So this is probably what I'm going to put in this hand, and I'll just test this out, and we'll both trade notes. That's going to be fun. That's going to be a fun day. Jeez. Okay. So yeah, that's what was in the box. Boxes, packages. One box, one package. And I am pleasantly surprised, and I am happy with these, and they're very nicely made. I have to thank LK Chen once again for sending these to me. I need to hurry up and get these damn videos out. Waiting on a few things to show up though, so yeah, I'm really liking this one. I really like the grips that they use to me. I gotta ask them where they're getting the cords for these grips, because they are rather nice. I could use these. Alright, before I head on out, I'll check your guys' questions real quick. Just checking something really fast. And look at the chat. So what did I miss? What's the newest sword? By the way, what's up, Fox? Billy and Fox is asking, what is the newest sword that I have now? Probably, my mind is like drawing a blank right now. I was about to say that Ming Gen that they made, but I realized right away that is completely wrong. The newest one that I got was the Mialdo that they recently sent. That's probably the newest one. And that one's just a beast. Beautiful, beautiful beast. Have I considered branching into knife dagger reviews, like reproductions of ancient Chinese antiques? Maybe, if I ever get my hands on one. I've never really trained much into knife fighting, but I'm beginning to build an interest in, at the least, shorter swords or daggers in the offhand. Simply because, like, so many other cultures have some form of that. We already know about, with European fighting, with rapier fighting, you know, or like even with side sword fighting, you'll have your main weapon in the right and then your dagger in the left for defense. And Japan, they got their version of it with Musashi's style of fighting. And even you don't really see this in Chinese martial arts per se. At least it's not popular. Usually when they pair off, it's similar weapons, and it's usually two short weapons instead of like two long weapons. But there are little hints or little like mutterings here and there of having a longer weapon in one hand and a short weapon in the other. And I've seen at least one movie, and I know, movies are not exactly the best places to go if you want to try to get some sense of real martial accuracy. But there was at least one Chinese swordplay movie I saw where one of the main characters was using a set. Like he had a jian in one hand and a dagger in the other, or more like a short sword. Like the blade was dagger-ish, short, but it was a shorter weapon in the other hand, and they were both matched. Like they both looked similar. And it was really cool seeing him actually fighting, you know, two-handed with the shorter in one and the longer in the other. So there's bound to be something. And even if there isn't, considering that martial arts is supposed to be evolving anyway, it would be nice if somebody makes up a modern Chinese weapon style with a short weapon in one hand and a longer one in the other, and it fits the general principles of how Chinese martial arts usually, like their body mechanics and all that. I'd see it as legit. I'd want to learn it. So yeah, it would be interesting, I guess, going into like daggers and knives and such. It's just I need to go figure out a place to start with it, I guess. Okay, so this is that one of them, training jian or saber. It's a training jian. That's from Aku King. They're asking is they're both training jian. They've talked a bit about some fittings I would want, but not much more. Oh yeah, I guess that was when I was talking about my favorite, what type of blade. I should just do a video on what my fantasy sword would be, the sword that I want to be. I'm probably hyping it up too much because it's not really anything too special. It's just a combination of swords that I've either seen or handled or owned over the years, and certain things that I would like to see combined into one piece. If they could do that, that would be great. Asking how's the tip. Oh, I guess you must have missed that part of the video. The tip it's just this rounded piece here. That's what it looks like. Ain't bad. What I could tell is that they kind of made the blade and then they just folded over the tip so it could be rounded at the end there. See that? So it's just blunted there, but yeah, it's not gonna, I doubt this is going to, like, you know, pierce through somebody. So there's that. It's good. And the flex, that should give you an idea. It's, you know what? This kind of reminds me a little bit of the, I remember some of the sparring rapier that people used to come in with when they used to do SCA rapier fighting. And this sort of reminds me of those, but this is not as floppy. Like some of those were really, really bendy to the point where I didn't like them. And these are a bit stiffer, but still has enough flex so that they're not going to, you know, it's not too stiff to really damage somebody. So, asking Fatty's asking what is a Jido. I don't think I've heard of that before. A Jido? I mean, I know a Ji is a type of polearm. We already know what a Dao is. A Jido, I don't think I've heard of that. I might have to get back to you on that one in another video or something, but I don't think I've heard of a Jido before. If you could like show me an example of it or something, then maybe I might tell you, but I don't think I've heard of that term. Then again, there's so many different Dao out there, and some of them have multiple names. That's another problem. To be honest, like what these days we call Miao Dao wasn't called that back when they were first being made. They were called something else. There's Chongdao, there's Sangshudao. There's so many different terms for similar looking weapons. So what one person might call one type of Dao might be called a different one later on down the line, or by a different martial arts lineage or different time period, or a different group of people. So that could also be part of the problem. Like, there's so many Dao there and so many different names, I don't know them all. What first got me into Chinese swords? Kung Fu movies when I was a kid. That was pretty much it. Shaw Brothers ruined my life. Just watching the old Shaw Brothers flicks. I just like swords, period, to be honest. Like any type of movie with really good swordplay, I was super into back then, and I'm still into now. But growing up as a kid, I grew up like with the Three Musketeers. I grew up like watching all these kung fu movies, which had cooler moves. Star Wars, with the lightsaber stuff. Like anything with swords, I just went nuts over. And when I became a teenager, I don't know what I don't know why I gravitated toward the straight blade when the curved ones were the flashier looking. Like Dao have flashier looking moves. Let's be honest. The circular motions and the whipping around and the chops and stuff like that looks cooler. But for some reason, I really like the straight sword. And it's hard for me to put into words why. I just kind of gravitated towards it. Maybe it was Shaolin versus Wu-Tang that ruined it for me, because I love that movie. It's one of my favorite ones. But I was already loving the straight sword before I saw that movie, so I don't know. It's kind of weird. I think it's a shame so many Chinese swords use threaded pommels instead of peened or pinned. What are my thoughts on this? I think that there are trade-offs with either. I mean, when you're using threaded, yes, you do run into the problem that the nut's going to get loose, whatever you're using, the fasten the thread's going to get loose. And if the thread itself, if the bottom of the tang, if that's not thick enough, or if the threaded part isn't long enough and the nut's not strong enough, then yeah, you're going to have a major fault right there. That being said, I personally am not against threaded, because for one thing, I'm lucky enough that a lot of the swords that I've used that have the threaded construction have been done very well. And the cool thing about them is that swords are going to get loose with overuse sooner or later. That's just the nature of the beast. There are a lot of antiques out there that were used in battle that were constructed well that are just loose now. It's just the passage of time and the constant use. You constantly banging against something or using it against something, gravity, everything else. The passage of time with the wood or the metals or whatever getting weakened. It's going to get loose. And when that happens, if you want to retighten it, all you gotta do is twist the nut. Or you can put some, like if you're working with the woodwork, you might put some spacers into the handguard and the hilt or whatever, and then tighten the nut, and you're good to go. There's not that much you need to do especially with modern day swords. Usually it gets loose because you did too much cutting, or maybe you banged it against something, sparring, blocking, whatever. It's a little loose. Get a pair of pliers, tighten it, you're back in business. Once you work with peened weapons, that goes right out the window, because as soon as they get loose, you're fucked. What are you gonna do? You put some shims in and hope for the best, but sooner or later that wood's gonna split, the handguard's gonna split, or the handle, whatever. And because the problem with the peened ones is that all you're doing is, you got a nice tight construction because you made your handguard fit the tang properly, and you slip that through, and then you bend it over and then put the end cap in there, and now tight, nice and tight. It's gonna take a long time before that thing gets loose, or it's gonna take a lot of abuse. Yeah, sure, but it's still gonna get loose eventually. And once that happens, now what are you gonna have to do? You're gonna have to unbend the peen, and then you're gonna have to freaking build a whole new freaking handle for that? People don't got time for that. When with a lot of modern swords, nut thread construction, tighten it up, you're good to go. What would you rather have? I mean, I know why people like the peen. I understand it. I'm not saying that it's necessarily a bad thing, but for the sake of convenience, I prefer threaded. Just saying. I don't really have a problem against threaded. Now, I'm not saying that if I got a peen, I'd complain. No, I'm just simply saying that whenever I see me personally, when I see a peened sword, I'm thinking, yeah, that's some high quality construction there. And it's on borrowed time. But then again, just to be honest, every sword is. But it's like, I'm like, once that thing gets loose, that's it. You know, that maybe I'm wrong for thinking that way, but that was always my impression with the peen swords. Once they get loose, you're gonna have to take it to a blacksmith or something to get it fixed. Let's see, is anyone looking? Have I looked into Korean swordsmanship? I've seen a few videos of it. I've read a few articles on it. I think it's cool. It's not something that I've trained in, but I personally think it's cool. I also do like how you're seeing cross-pollination with Korean swordsmanship. Like, you know, there's some evidence of, you know, certain Chinese swordsmanship manuals crossing over into Korea and then they're making it their own. And also with the cross-pollination of Japanese swordsmanship crossing into there and then they're taking those and making it their own. It's cool. I like seeing places where it becomes a melting pot of different martial ideas. And then they just take that and then make, you know, their own thing out of it. Because it shows that martial arts doesn't evolve in a vacuum. Like it, because this cross-pollination didn't just simply happen in Korea. Like, it, you know, manuals ended up over there. They trained with it. They took some Japanese stuff. They trained with it. They like it. It's really cool. You don't think it went both ways? You don't think that some of that stuff went back to Japan or some of that stuff went back to China and they looked at it and went, hey, this stuff is cool. And then they used it themselves. So, yeah, I am certain that that sort of thing was happening as well. And that's another reason why I like seeing Korean swordsmanship, because I see a lot of overlap with the other martial arts traditions of the other countries around it. Let's see, you can fix a peen sword, you can just hammer on the peen to tighten it. Yeah, you can hammer on the peen to tighten that, but that still is a little that's more inconvenient. Okay, it's a lot simpler to, okay, it got loose, bang it, boom, tight. But again, I ask you, what's easier? This got loose. Where's the hammer? All right, make sure you don't hit it too hard so I don't break the freaking hilt when I want to split the wood. Or, oh, this got loose. Get the pliers. Done. You're not going to sell me on the convenience of a peened one over a threaded one. You're just not going to do it. I'm not saying peened is bad. Again, if I had a peen sword, I wouldn't think it's a bad thing. But I think for the sake of convenience, especially in these modern times when we mostly use these as training tools, when you just want to, like, okay, I need something to work with. I need something to practice cutting with. When it starts to show wear and tear and it gets loose and you want to maintain it yourself and you don't want to have to wait a long time to fix it, or you don't want to go through too much to fix it or to keep it going, I'd rather go to the one that is easier to maintain than the one that it's going to take a little extra effort for. If that extra effort is going to mean superior performance, that's one thing. But considering that at the end of the day it's just so that the sword is able to function and be safe, and all I have to do in order to maintain the functionality of one is just to tighten a nut, come on. Just, come on. All right. So the balance is the most... All right, I'm completely new to training with swords. Does it matter what kind you get? Yeah. Just like with anything that you're training in, you want to make sure that your training tools are good quality and actually will help you to move on to the real thing. If you are working with training tools that aren't up to the task, the least that's going to happen, though it's still a problem, is that you might end up building yourself, getting accustomed to something that's not properly weighted or balanced or made for the thing that you're practicing for. Or at worst, you might be training with something that's unsafe and might be causing you harm. So you need to make sure that you are working with, you know, something that is as close to the real thing as possible or is going to build you up to the real thing. You want to make sure you have something that, in the case of swordsmanship, is going to be safe enough so that you can keep on practicing with it without horribly damaging yourself or your training partners. You're going to want to, you know, make sure that, like I said, properly weighted, balanced, not going to fall apart on you. You know, just, you want to make sure you have decent enough tools. Though keep in mind that even certain cheaper ones may have their purpose. And I know somebody just put down no wooden yen. No, there's some good wooden yen out there. And in fact, Scott Rodell swears by those. He's got in fact, a lot of times when they're sparring and practicing with each other, they're using wooden yen. And there are companies out there that make some really good wooden sparring weapons or training weapons. They're not going to behave exactly like swords, obviously, but there's a reason why wooden weapons have been used for a very long period of time in Asian martial arts. It's because they work. You can get them at the very least to weigh properly. You know they're, if you made them out of decent wood and they were constructed properly, then they're not going to break as easily. And while they won't necessarily, well, you could bludgeon somebody to death with a well-made wooden weapon, so you want to make sure not to do that. But it's not like you're going to be cleaving through them. There's a bit less of a chance of permanent injury, but it will still give enough of a blow so that when you hit the dude, ow, yeah, don't do that next time. You know, there's enough of that. So I don't knock wooden weapons as long as they're properly made. There are a lot of wooden yen out there that are crap. I've had some, like, you know, the ones I'm talking about, the ones that you can get for $15 in any Chinatown store. Those break way too easy if you're sparring against somebody else. You can only do like light drills with those. However, that being said, there are certain training weapons that maybe they aren't good for sparring against somebody or doing a lot of heavy drills, but you could at least do some light drills with them. If they're at the very least balanced correctly, you can go through forms, you know, you can do your drills, you can practice your blocks and your parries and stuff like that. As long as they're at least balanced correctly, have a bit of weight to them so that you're going to be training your muscles, you know, building yourself up to the type of weight that you're going to need to get used to, then yeah, it's good. But you want to make sure that you're working. Every training weapon's got its practicalities, its flaws, strengths and weaknesses. So I should have pulled this one out earlier. If I'm going to be working with this, for instance, which is one of the LK10 ones, this one, I'll admit, is lighter than a standard yen, right? But it's still balanced correctly. See, the balance points are right about there. So right away, when I'm holding this, I can tell you, this is what I'm used to, and the techniques that, you know, I was trained in will work. So I can drill with this and get the muscle memory I need. If I'm sparring against someone, it's going to behave, not completely, because this is not metal, so it's not going to kind of bind and bite in certain ways that you expect it to slide. It's not going to be exactly the same. But it's close enough so that I can at least be able to try some of those techniques on there. But it's also safe enough, because of the rounded tip and the flex it has, that I won't accidentally kill the dude that I'm trying to train with. You know, he's there to help me to get myself better. He's not there for me to break down. So this is going to help both of us to, you know, build ourselves up, train, and stuff like that. So that, you know, this is an example of what I would consider to be, you know, a well-made training weapon. I can drill with it. I can practice with it. I can spar with it. It's not exactly the real thing, but it's close enough. This, since this is made of steel, now we're getting a little bit closer to the proper weight, though the blade is really thin. And when I say thin, I mean like its profile is thin. The thickness is actually, you know, it's actually close to, you know, the real thing, though since it's a thinner profile, there's less material here, so it's going to feel a bit lighter, right? But the balance is definitely there. Since it is at least above a pound, it's 1 pound 5 ounces, so almost 1.5 pounds. Still needs a few more ounces, you know, but there's at least some weight so that I won't feel like I'm flinging a toy around. The balance is right so that when I'm throwing my cuts, it feels like there's enough mass to that, so that's good. There's enough flex in here so that, again, if I'm sparring against somebody else, I'm not going to badly damage them. The rounded tip is also there for put there for their protection. So I can do my drills, I can do, you know, I can spar, I can do that sort of stuff, and it's well constructed, nice and tight, so I know it's going to be able to stand up to abuse. At least I hope so. I have to test this fully, but so far I get the sense that this will stand up to abuse. Good long-term use training tool. These are the sorts of things that you want to look for when you're looking for some type of sparring weapon. Now, I will say that it's relatively new for, you know, it's interesting to me how, even though Chinese martial arts have been around for a very long time, good sparring weapons are few and far between. It's only recently that I've started seeing them coming out with some good stuff, but only just a few years ago, it was just crap. It was just mountains of crap. This is why it's like, you know, when Purple Armory started jumping in and started making stuff, it was like a new market for them. Like, hey, this is an untapped market. There's got some money here, you know, because no one else is making them. HEMA, they were getting their stuff. Japanese martial arts, they at least had really good wooden weapons to, you know, to work with. What do we have? A few crappy wooden gen that they're selling for like $15, $20. They easily break if you breathe on them. That's about it. That's all we had. Or they would like have us playing around with LARP weapons. Like, you know, you had foam padded stuff to bang around. That was it. And then, you know, for training, okay, yeah, you had the metal swords that they were selling that they were calling real swords, and at best, they were good for forms training and drilling. And that was it. We didn't even have real swords that we could get our hands on unless we were willing to spend around $500, $600. And even then, there were problems. It was only like fairly recently that we finally started getting some decent stuff. So, yeah, for those of you who are who are interested in any sort of Chinese martial arts weapon stuff, and you're now starting to look around, I wonder what's good. You guys are lucky, in my opinion. You guys are starting to get spoiled. You guys are getting things that just a few years ago we did not have. We did not have these. Like, you know, it's in the 90s. Shit. We did not have these. Early 2000s, we did not have these. I mean, hell, the 2000s. Hold on while I'm going to knock things over. I'm trying not to knock things over. We didn't have these. Not for the money this is going for, no. This. Not even Hanwei was putting out stuff like this, no. They were putting out stuff that they were charging like $130-something for, and they were at best good for practice. If you wanted their so-called real swords, you were paying close to $1,000 for something that would look good on your wall. They point blank stated, oh, these things were not made for cutting. These things are not, yeah, the blades may be sharp, but don't try to spar with them. Don't try to do any cutting with it because the tangs were too thin. The weights weren't proper. In fact, Hanwei didn't have a properly weighted and balanced gen that could actually perform the way a gen was supposed to until Scott made got them to design and make the Scott Rodell cutting gen. And if you go and look at what year that thing first came out, that will scare you. That's how bad it was. Not to say that there weren't swordsmiths in China churning out real swords. The problem was us in the West, we didn't really have access to them. And when the few people that we did have access to, oh, you want this sword? You want this sword, don't you? You got $1,000? No? Then I guess you're not getting this, are you? Yeah, it was that bad. Oh, man. So, yeah, the wushu floppy stuff. Don't even get me started on the fact that so many people thought that wushu steel was the way these swords are supposed to. To this day, there are people who think that, you know, the straight swords are supposed to be like that. Like they're supposed to wave around in the wind all the time when you whip them around and make all that stupid noise. No, that's not how real swords act. It's gotten so bad that they're now showing that off in movies like they're normal. That's not normal. You know, I was about to cut this off, but I'm going to go off on this one little rant before I cut this off. And some of you guys on Patreon, I'm pretty sure, there was a video that I put out that only my Patreon people saw. And I think it's still there. But it was me, like I did a review on the sequel to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which, by the way, it's an okay movie. It's not spectacular, but it's okay. If you just want to see some action, it's decent enough for that. As far as the drama goes and all that, it's a step down from the original. But it, at the same time, is... I appreciated what they tried to do with that movie because the plot is a little closer to the actual books that Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is supposed to be based on. Like, I saw the sleight of hand that they were doing. That's a rant for another time. But one of my biggest problems with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is the Green Destiny itself. I hate the way it's portrayed in the movies. Can't stand it. One, they have it acting like your typical whippy wushu crap that, you know, people think is supposed to be like a real sword and it's not. They're not supposed to bend like that. They're not supposed to flex like that. The other problem I have with the sword is that it's not even what they say it is. Any of you guys who happen to have that movie or you have access to the whole film, go back to when they're describing it. Go back to when, you know, they're like in the warehouse and there's the two older guys there, and the guy goes, yeah, go take a look at it. And the guy pulls the blade out and he's examining it, and the other guy is describing it, saying it has this many rubies in the hilt. It's this long, it's this thick, and it was made during a time that by the time it was the Song Dynasty, the technique was lost. Okay. Yeah, they were saying it was like from the Han Dynasty or something like that. Yeah, right? And yeah, the sequel is on Netflix, by the way. Now, we've seen swords from an earlier dynasty. Does the Green Destiny in that movie look like it was made during that time period? Or even behave like a sword from that time period? No. Not in the slightest. The closest that they could say is maybe, you know, the fact that it has those really cool designs on the blade. Because remember, we have examples of cool, you know, bronze swords where they did some really cool designs and extra stuff on the blades themselves. And there's certain Han swords that you could probably say the same thing. But, yeah, seriously, it just pissed me off. I mean, I guess this is like the way I'm complaining about this right now is the same way that I guess a nerd would be watching some science fiction movie going, there is no way the warp drive engines would work that way. Like, I know that this is pretty much what I'm doing right now with a fantasy martial arts movie, but it's just, it frustrates the hell out of me that they got this sword doing this shit and it's bending and twisting around in a way that it shouldn't, and then they're trying to insult our intelligence by going, this was made back before the Song Dynasty. Oh, shit. It doesn't even have the right freaking handguard from a blade that could have came from that time period. Unless you're going to tell me that the blade was kept and they just put new furnishings on it. I mean, I'd buy that. I'd swallow that. But that's not what they're saying. That's not how they described it. It just looked like, in fact, Marcus Chung just says it best right here. He says, it looks like a low-quality Qing find that a blacksmith turned out as a joke for the Republican era. Yeah, that's pretty much what it just looks like, something that was made in the Qing dynasty to appease some higher-ranked noble or something. Like that's what it looks like. But even the noble would have been insulted by the quality of the blade being so thin that it blows in the breeze. It's not how they're made. Ugh. Yeah, and I do understand. Yes, I understand the restrictions that the Chinese government has put on real swords in China. I am aware of that. I understand that. And I understand that a lot of that cultural interference, which is why they are portrayed the way they are in movies today, and why a lot of martial artists out there, including people in freaking Wudang, are training with swords that are not really close to the real thing. I get it. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to get upset about it. Actually, you know what movie I think insults our intelligence worse than Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon when it comes to the behavior of swords? Hero. If Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon annoyed me with the way the Green Destiny was behaving, because remember, the Green Destiny is supposed to be this ultimate sword. It's slicing through other weapons. You trying to tell me that a weapon that freaking flimsy is able to slice through heavier weapons? Get the fuck out of here. No. But as mad as that made me, when I saw Hero, oh my God. You, really? Remember what era Hero's supposed to be taking place in. Remember what time period Hero's supposed to be taking place in. Now look at how those swords behaved. Just wow. 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 Now, okay. Now you're talking about Aqua King is talking about, you know, them flying around and all the wire food going on. I do have a certain suspension of disbelief once I start seeing the flying around going. Like I know what I'm in for. I just like the point where I'm like, okay, I'm done is when the swords start bending in ways that they shouldn't. Like as it's I know that might be a weird place. That's a weird mountain for me to die on. I understand this. I'm not saying I'm rational about it. I'm just saying that if it's supposed to be steel, or in this case, this is a time period that steel swords I don't even think were being made yet, because this is during when damn it, because this is supposed to be pre-Han Dynasty when Hero takes place, and that's a period where they weren't even making steel yet. They were working with bronze freaking swords. Bronze does not behave that way. You can sort of get away with it with steel, sort of, because, you know, steel can bend. It's just that we also know that if the steel bends that way, then they're not strong enough to be swords, but that's the other beef. But now you're talking about bronze. Like, no. No. Just stop. Stop. Just stop. And it's weird coming from me because it's like, again, one of my favorite kung fu movies is what's it the Cult Lord, Cult Master, the Cult Master. It's an old Jet Li film. I know they changed its name to like different things, but it's I think it's called Cult Master in Chinese, and it's yet another retelling of the Zhang Moke story arc. Okay. Just to show you how much of a freaking nerd I am when it comes to a lot of like kung fu stuff and kung fu movies and Chinese literature and stuff like that. There's these books, like the Condor Hero books, and then later on the Heaven Sword Dragon Saber saga of books that it's a big deal in China, and it's a really cool story. And they've remade, like they've done movies on these books, and they've remade the story over and over and over again. There's like at least 2 or 3 different TV series that retell the story. There's like a couple of different movies that retell the story. And The Cult Master is yet a really quick, fast retelling of one of the main story arcs of this, the Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber story arc. And that's one of my favorite freaking movies. And there's like no real martial arts in that film whatsoever. You got like Jet Li like freaking firing freaking chi blasts out of his fists. You got somebody using a freaking straight blade like it's a lightsaber slicing through everything. Like as soon as she pulls the sword out, the thing, you see yellow lights and everything just gets sliced up and stuff. You like see people like just do this and go like that and then walls shatter. Like it's complete freaking fantasy. But they go all in with it without necessarily like, it's like they straight up go, look, nothing in here is real. But at the same time, you don't necessarily see swords bending in ways that they shouldn't. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of stuff in here that is straight up fantasy, but it's like they don't insult your intelligence at the same time, if that makes any sense. Like, the balance between BS and believable was done well for this flick. So, I liked it. I love that movie. Like, it cracks me up, and I wish they were able to make the sequel, but apparently it didn't do well in the box office, so that's why there's only one film. But they were planning on having the sequel. Because there is something that's supposed to happen afterwards. Like, there's a whole arc. If you're really interested in it, I think at least on YouTube, somebody put, like, one of the TV series versions of this story on YouTube. So if you really are interested in finding out what happened with the Heaven Sword, Dragon Saber saga, and all what happens to the characters, and, you know, how Ming Cult survives, and, you know, all that, how Wudong survived. Like, it's on there. The whole thing's on YouTube, and I think they do a bit of a better job than that. But it's, yeah, but I can watch crazy movies like this with a whole lot of fake martial arts and enjoy myself. It's just that once I start seeing them say that this is how swords work, and it's like, no, they don't. And if they're gonna say that, oh, this guy's chi is so powerful that he can make the steel move that way, I'd half buy it. But if you're just simply saying that, okay, this is how swords act, period, or this is the way these swords acted in the past, period, that's when I'm like, no, I'm done. Sorry, no, ain't buying it. I'm out. I'm out. Oh, man. You disagree on the incorrect portrayal due to some government policy. The producers simply don't know any better. I agree and disagree with that. I think it's a mix of things. A lot of times when we see things happening, and I'm just not just speaking about martial arts, I'm just simply talking about culture in general and popular knowledge in general, the way we go about our world today, our general knowledge. A lot of things have a lot of factors to them. It's rare that you can take a symptom of something, you can take something and go, oh, this is the reason why it's doing that. There's always going to be a mix. So in the terms of the whole floppy sword thing, yes, it could be producers simply not knowing any better. We've certainly seen that with other countries. China is, and Chinese culture as a whole, are not the only ones ignorant of how swords perform. They don't have a monopoly on this. Western movies have plenty of their own inaccuracies on how sword fights work and what swords can do. Same thing in Japan. Like, everybody's got their own misconceptions on stuff that you would think that this is their culture. They should know this. And they don't. I mean, how many... Okay, America's supposed to be the land of the gun. Like, everybody's gun crazy over here. So you would think that producers would know how guns would work when they make their movies. You want to give yourself an aneurysm? Start watching typical Hollywood movies on how guns perform, and sooner or later you're going to start bleeding out the eyes when you realize that's not... What? No, you can't... What the fuck? It's there too. So there's a lot of different factors. It's not just about government, but I do think that government policy have played a part. It's not the sole reason. A lot of it is just plain ignorance, but it's one of the factors. I'll just put it that way. You said authentic sword reproductions are sold in China. Okay. What are my thoughts on... So by the way, I didn't want to just rub over that. If you're saying authentic reproductions are sold in China, cool. It would be nice to have somebody on the inside letting us know how it is, because I'm not in the country, and a lot of people who've told me that it is hard to get a real made sword in China in that market easily. A lot of people are telling me that that's not how it is. I don't know because I'm not in there. If you're telling me that that's definitely false, great. It would be nice to have some more people on the inside, or some more people who have more direct knowledge helping to correct that misconception. Let's see. Oh yeah, sorry. What are my thoughts on Jet Li's movie War, where the fights with a katana like a doll? That's an older film. Personally, War is not that great a movie, but I actually didn't have a problem with him fighting with the katana like a doll, because quite frankly, to oversimplify weapons a bit, it is. I mean, the katana in China is just seen as yet another type of doll. In fact, they have a name for it, Wodo. I know I'm mispronouncing it, but yeah, they have a term. It's just Wodo, or Japanese knife, or Japanese blade. They just look at it as another curved single-edged weapon. So using it with their own understandings and how to use a curved single-edged weapon doesn't seem all that far-fetched to me. I thought it was cool, to be honest. And it's not the first time, by the way, that Jet Li has used katanas like doll. Check out Fong Sayuk 2. When he's in the alleyway and he's got like all these guys standing in his way, and he grabs all these Japanese katanas and stick them on his belt, and he's like, I will not see my brothers die, and blindfolds himself and starts slicing his way through the alleyway. Yeah, he's using katana like Dao in that whole fight, and it's cool. He's fighting two-handed, like he's got one in each hand, and he's chopping his way through. Awesome stuff. So yeah, it's not the first time he's done it. How do you explain Hong Kong cinema also happened to floppy swords? Floppy swords. I've already said enough about the whole floppy sword thing, but quite frankly, it's just a general misconception there. These Trunks' sword didn't flop. Katana or doll. Fight me. I've already said that. Do I know any Chinese techniques that involve quick drawing from the scabbard? Nope, I don't know of any. I'm not saying that there wasn't somebody who did that. I just personally don't know of any. And there certainly isn't a school or an art dedicated to it like there is in Japan, as far as I know. Yeah, being very strict on a single style isn't the best idea. Using Zen techniques with a doll to switch things up for the situation is a good idea. Not only is it a good idea, it's been done. There are weapons that were clearly designed to be crossover weapons in China. There have been weapons that kind of evolved over the years due to a change in technique or vice versa. A change in technique changed up the weapon. So it's kind of funny to me now these days, especially if you're coming from a strict quote unquote traditional mindset, it's considered taboo to have crossover. But the funny thing is, Chinese martial arts evolved because of crossover. That's what I find hilarious. Like, I think this was something that was a mainstay from the Republican era, when Chinese martial arts was starting to become a little bit more standardized. When you're trying to come up with a curriculum, when you're trying to like, okay, we're going to be teaching this to the nation. This is no longer just like, you know, haphazard collection of different schools and different masters all throughout the land teaching their own thing. We are going to teach Kung Fu to the nation because we want to have our own equivalent to Budo and the warrior spirit in Japan. They're making us look like idiots. So we need to come up with our own version. So we're going to teach Chinese martial arts everywhere. We're going to start printing manuals, and we're going to have the, you know, our Wushu Institute, and we're going to have, you know, Jinwu School and all this cool stuff. But when you start coming up with curriculums, and you start trying to standardize things, you need to come up with a standard of quality as well. And what counts as good technique, what counts as bad, what's this, what's that. You start dividing things up. And sometimes you do a really good job of compartmentalizing things, and sometimes you screw it up. Like with how they started naming, this counts as Shaolin and this counts as Wudang. And they have completely ridiculous standards to what would count as Shaolin and Wudang martial arts and internal and external. But I've already ranted about that. I don't need to get into that again. But one of the standards that kind of came from that time period is, okay, this weapon is performed this way, and that's it. That's it. This is how you perform it. So when you're using the staff, I better not see any spear technique in there, or you're doing it wrong. If you're using the spear, I better not see any staff technique in there, or you're doing it wrong. If you're using the Dao, Dao is Dao. That's it. And the Jian is the Jian. I better not see you doing any weird Dao stuff with the Jian. Or you're doing it wrong. That's it. And in some ways, yeah, that's good practical advice, because, like, for instance, the general wrapping motion you do with the Dao, you don't really want to do that with a Jian. But on the other hand, you know, there's just certain motions you do with a cutting weapon that's just going to cross over whether you like it or not. And depending on the weapon you're using, like, okay, if you're using a curved single-edged weapon, fine. I understand, you know, you're not gonna be thrusting with it very much. You could, but you know, like an oxtail Dao, that is clearly more of a cutting and slashing weapon than a thrusting weapon. You could do that, but that's not really what it was made for. Now take a goose quill saber. Well, now that one's not nearly as deeply curved, and the tip is a little bit more narrow, so now you can thrust with that. So you're gonna tell me that you're not gonna be using a thrust that you probably picked up from a Jian somewhere? Or what happens if you now put a tongue-style Dao in their hands? Now you got a completely straight weapon. And what if you put, you know, that kind of Jian-style point on it as well? It may be single-edged, but now you got a point that's sharp on both sides. You could now use that more Jian-like, couldn't you? Why wouldn't you? See what I mean? And then, yeah, we're saying there's evidence that Chinese martial arts were influenced by Persian and Indian martial arts too. Yeah, there is a lot of evidence to that. For instance, I've seen these exact same Dao motion being used in Persian sword skills. I've seen the exact same wrap. Exact same. Now, well, they got it from us. Who cares? The point is that there's cross-pollination. And within China itself, there's a lot of cross-pollination. In fact, what a lot of traditionalists need to understand, and I know they're going to get bad at this, is that their martial arts don't really go back much further than the Ming Dynasty. And in the Ming Dynasty, a lot of martial arts got rediscovered / redeveloped. They might, my style goes back to the Song Dynasty. My style goes back to, or maybe somebody was using a similar name, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the exact same technique. Or maybe it was lost and somebody found some notes on it somewhere and tried to reconstruct it from there. You know, similar to what Hima's doing. Does it make it illegitimate? Not necessarily. If it works, it works. You know? But, yeah, Bagua isn't that old. No, it's not. In fact, that's actually one of the things going for it. The fact that it's not that old. I'll get into that another time. But, yeah, a lot of Chinese martial arts has a lot of cross-pollination from within itself and from other cultures. Constantly. And I mean, there are other nations that, even as much as we want to say, no, it developed here, it's ours. Well, you made it yours, but it didn't necessarily start there. Again, I spoke about this before, how Japanese karate, modern day karate, owes a lot to its development to Western fighting. They got a lot of its kicks from Savate. They don't want to say that. It's true. You know? Or Sanshu, which a lot of people like talk about modern Sanshu, which is it's good fighting, but a lot of how they throw their hands, they got that from Western boxing. Western boxing was actually kind of big during the Republican era of China. They even wrote their own, there's like a manual that was printed for Chinese people to pick up boxing techniques, because a lot of people in the more nationalized martial arts schools, they were like looking at martial arts, and like when they were trying to come up with a standardized curriculum for teaching people Chinese martial arts, they were looking at boxing and they had to admit, boxing kind of teaches people how to punch properly a lot faster than what we've been doing. It's true. I'm not making this up. I'm not saying this to disparage stuff. Remember, I love Chinese martial arts, but the truth's the truth. Thanks for the 5 TM space. Get yourself some sleep. What are my thoughts on Sanda versus a straight traditional style? Whatever works, works. I mean, I will say that a Sanda fighter is probably going to be, unless, it always, of course, is going to come down to the quality of instruction. But having said all that, all things being equal, I have a feeling the Sanda guy is going to have a quicker grasp on how to fight than the traditional artist. If the guy training in the traditional school is going through all the stuff that we usually see in traditional schools, where they have you doing stance training for a long time, then the basic punches, then your drills, and after a few months, now you're doing some 2-person drills, now you begin to do some light sparring. Meanwhile, the Sanda guy's getting thrown in the ring within the first couple of days. He's already going to get ready to fight. That gives them an edge. If you're giving the earlier you give people practical skills, the better they're going to be at employing those practical skills. That's just reality. A good example of this is what happened with Wing Chun. And this is one of my favorite stories about Wing Chun. This cracks me up every time I think about it. One of the reasons why Wing Chun got so popular I'm not talking, these days Wing Chun got popular because of the Ip Man movies, but I'm talking way before that. Like during the 50s and the 60s or so. Like even, around 40s and 50s. In Hong Kong, there was this beef apparently going on between a lot of, different schools. And there was like generally, and I'm generalizing here, but I've at least been told, like, at least with the Choi Lei Fo schools and the Wing Chun schools, there was a lot of rivalry. A lot of, fighting going on in alleyways and stuff like that. And after Ip Man showed up, the Wing Chun guys started getting out of control. It started getting to the point where they were starting to be seen as the bad boys of the martial arts world in Hong Kong. Like, they were f***ing people up. And people were wondering what was going on. And by the way, it got so bad, just this one anecdote, it got so bad that there was a dude that they got to make their Wing Chun dummies. Like, they commissioned their Wing Chun dummies with this guy. And the Wing Chun people were causing so much grief that he stopped making dummies for them. Like, he actually later on said, I will never make another Wing Chun dummy ever again. He was just like, I regret ever giving these guys tools to fuck the place up. Like, he was that disgusted and that upset over the fact that they were causing that much havoc. But to get to the main point, the main reason why, it's funny, you a Baji dude? Awesome. Baji Chuan is an amazing freaking style. But anyway, to get back to what I was saying, the reason why the Wing Chun guys were getting so much of a jump on everyone else wasn't because of the Wing Chun dummies, though that did help. What it really was that Ip Man was giving them practical skills from day one. From day one, he was already giving them close range sensitivity training. I'm speaking in as like as simplistic a term as possible. I don't want to start getting into technicals here. I just want to go into like the simplistic terms. Like basically, he was already teaching these guys what it takes to win up close. Like, I forgot the particular term for it, but basically, the sensitivity training when you get your hands close and you feel out exactly when they're punching and all that. He was already having them doing two-man drills, and he was already having them doing sparring, and he was already having them learn sensitivity up close, so that you know where the guy's going before the blow comes in, how to fight in the clinch and how to fight up close. This is not normally done. Traditional Wing Chun, they don't teach people, like way traditional, before Ip Man showed up, they didn't show you this shit until you've been there for a few months. But he was already showing these people how to do this from day one. Other traditional schools most certainly weren't teaching them their fighting theory within the first couple of weeks. Yeah, the sticky hand stuff, he was already showing them that stuff from when you first walk in the door. You don't think that gives people an edge? It's like, okay, you got one school over here that goes, okay, this is how you slip a punch and jab. This is how you counter and jab. And then the other school's going, this is how you stand. Now I want you to stand like this for 3 hours. Who's going to be ready to fight at the end of the week? So yeah, the Wing Chun guys were already being taught how to fight from day one, while the other schools were being taught the art from day one until later on when the teacher thought they were proficient enough to learn the secrets, which is just really the theory of the style. No wonder they were roughing people up. Chisao, yeah, Chisao's part of it too, yeah. But yeah, that I like that story because it proves a point that I've always wanted to say about martial arts. If you're gonna learn how to fight, learn how to fight. But learning how to fight is different from learning an art. People get that twisted. When people are getting into martial arts, there's different reasons to get into it. And I'm not necessarily saying that one reason is more valid than the other. But what I'm saying is your focus is going to determine what you get out of it. So if when you go to the school, the teacher's focus is to give you practical skills from day one, then yeah, you're going to be better at fighting, period. It's part of the reason why the MMA guys are doing so well. When they walk into the gym, they're not there for enlightenment. They're there to fuck you up. Excuse my language. From day one, this is how you ground somebody. This is how you throw a jab. This is how you throw a leg shot. This is how they give you practical skills from day one because the focus is to be good at fighting. Meanwhile, you have another school, the focus here is to be a better man. Come on. I'm not trying to disparage things here. Again, I like Chinese martial arts. I'm trained in Chinese martial arts. Bagua Zhang is the one that I want to stick with until the day I die. I'm not that good at it yet, but it's the one that I like. But I'm being real here. And I think part of the reason why I have this mindset is because I was growing up around people that had this mindset. The people that I used to train with when I first got into it had this mindset. They relied on their hands. They weren't, like the people I hung around with, they weren't gentle people, and they knew their way around having to throw their hands around, so this was their mindset. And I kind of grew up with this sort of mindset, and I, later on the stuff that I was starting to read and the people I started gravitating towards, I noticed they had that same mindset. And unfortunately, it's not that common a mindset in traditional martial arts. And I'm not just simply talking about Chinese martial arts, just traditional martial arts, period. After a while, it starts becoming more about other things. And I'm not necessarily saying those things are bad. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, for instance, trying to improve your health. There's nothing wrong if, per se, you're trying to reach enlightenment. There's nothing wrong with trying to master the art and where you're trying to master your body movement and making your technique as pure and as well performed as you possibly can, trying to reach the epitome of what your art is supposed to perform like. Okay, cool. But those things are not the same as I want to learn how to fight. In fact, that's not even the same thing as I want to learn self-defense. Yeah, that's actually two different things. I want to be a professional fighter is different from I want to learn how to defend myself. They're actually in somewhat different paths. There's different facets, and depending on what you're going to be focusing on, depends on, what you're going to end up with. So yeah, if, say, an MMA guy who is training to do nothing but try to not get his knot knocked off in the ring is going up against some dude wearing white pajamas who does nothing but practice empty Tai Chi forms, yeah, the MMA guy is going to win. Now, if you take that same Tai Chi dude and from day one he was doing his Tai Chi stuff, wearing nothing but sweats and a tank top against other people trying to throw him to the ground, then yeah, he would have a higher chance of winning. So hopefully that answers the question about how well, Sanda versus a traditional martial artist, who would win? My answer is, who focused more on fighting? Whose training focused more on fighting? That should give you the answer. And if all things being equal, they both did, then it's going to come down to the skill of the students involved. Okay. Am I going to do a conversational interview with Adam Hsu or Yang Jwing? Why would they talk to me? I would love to, but why would they talk to me? I got lucky with Scott Rodell. The only reason why that started out was simply because I was lucky enough to get in conversation with him. I was ordering, basically I wanted to get my hands on his cutting tin. And it wasn't available. I contacted the place where you can get it direct, and I wasn't expecting him to be the one who answered the phone. That's how it started. I got lucky. I'm a nobody on YouTube. And I'm a nobody in martial arts. Why would Adam Hsu or Yang Jwing Ming ever want to speak to me? I would love to. That would be an awesome interview. Man, I don't know what I would give for that, but I don't see that happening. Really need a compromise between revealing all your secrets so your students prove themselves and wins and losing your edge with your techniques as well as everywhere for teachers. Yeah, there's also that whole competition thing. The teacher versus the student always want to withhold certain things that you always remain on top, but you can't remain on top forever. So yeah, I knew what you meant. Don't worry. I knew you meant Yang Jwing Ming. I recognized the name even though it was misspelled. Are there any Chinese sword arts influenced by Western fencing? I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I do not know. I will say that I think that there's probably some cross-pollination going on now, even if they don't necessarily want to admit it, or I don't know if people are necessarily mentally conscious of it. But I would not be surprised if there wasn't some cross-pollination going on now. I could not say about how it's going on in the past. I'll also say this. Again, there are certain universal principles that you're just going to see in all weapon arts. You can only move your body a certain amount of ways. And there's only so many practical ways you can swing a blade around. So sometimes looking at a different martial art to understand your own might be a good idea. I know that I wasn't able to start figuring out, oh, that's how you're supposed to do this, until I bumped into a rapier fighter in Indiana. Like, he saw me practicing by myself once, and he was like, whoa! Like, he really wanted to, like, see what I was doing. And he's like, hey, you want to spar? And next thing I know, we were meeting up every weekend in his garage and trading notes and sparring. And I didn't even, like, I was, like, messing around with the Chinese sword for a while. And, yeah, I knew forms, and, yeah, I was doing drills, but I didn't really know what the hell I was doing as far as keeping somebody else's blade from entering my flesh. Like, it wasn't until I started going up against this, I'm like, oh, that's how you're supposed to use this. Or the way he did that, that looks similar to, oh, that's how. I needed to go with someone else. It also helped that he was used to, banging blades around. So, but he was from a completely different, martial culture. He was into rapier fighting. But that helped me out. So I wouldn't be surprised if that sort of thing isn't already happening in the modern world. We're already seeing it. HEMA has already influenced Chinese martial arts, whether people want to admit it or not. We've already seen it. We have already seen, like, how people are looking at what's going on in HEMA and going, we need to do that for... Do you honestly think this would have been made if it wasn't for what's going on in HEMA? Really? Let's be honest with ourselves. This is how arts evolve. This is how you have to... This is the reason why I, by the way, for all the people who want to live in homogenous societies or keep talking about how, it's a clash of cultures. Bullshit. Human society and human endeavors do not evolve. and get better and improved without seeing perspectives from outside of their spheres. That's how things blow up. And all the cultures throughout history, they never leveled up until the Renaissance period. Renaissance, everyone talks about the European Renaissance and all these scientists and all these shows the brilliance of European thinking. Renaissance means reclaiming, relearning. They're rediscovering stuff that they lost. You want to know what they lost? Connection to the outside world and the sciences and intelligences of other freaking cultures. Yes, physics and calculus and all that stuff came out of Europe, but it wouldn't have built there in the first place if they haven't picked up from stuff from other cultures before. They had to relearn that stuff and learn the mathematics from that and build upon that to get to where they were at. You need to get perspectives from elsewhere in order to build up your own. And then through your own advancement, you help other people advance. It's cyclical. That's how it works. Nothing develops well in a vacuum. You don't just simply do things all on your own. So when you're getting better and other people see it, they will take and borrow, and then they're going to develop it their own selves. The katana is a good example of this, right? People keep talking about, oh, it came from China, it came from China, it came. Yeah, and the Japanese made it their own. Who cares where it came from? What did you do with it? They took it and built it and made it their own thing. Then other people saw that, hey, that looks cool, and they built their own thing on top of that. You got Western smiths looking at how they were making weapons over there. The way they make katanas over there is really cool. Now you got people making twist core knives and twist core longswords and all this other type of stuff. And before, these things used to be made out of just straight up monosteel. Human knowledge is supposed to be cyclical. In fact, I'm just going to say it right now. Human development, period, is supposed to be a resource sharing measure. It's a resource sharing endeavor. This whole purity nonsense and just keeping it all here is how it stagnates. People are always complaining about how Chinese martial arts have stagnated. Well, part of the reason is because no cross-pollination. You want it to not stagnate? You need to start communicating with other martial arts cultures. And the same thing goes for culture and human knowledge as well. Same thing, by the way, goes for wealth, but that's a rant for another time. Human development never advances without a constant sharing of resources. Trading notes, trading perspectives, looking at things from other people's point of view, and then weighing it with your own and coming up with an even wider perspective because of it. If you can't do that, you will not evolve. Period. Doesn't matter who you are or what your culture is. All right, I've been here long enough. It's now 1:17. This was supposed to just be, showing these off, which, by the way, I still think these are cool, and I can't wait to test these out. I am going to turn this off. Need to spend some time with my buddies before I go to sleep. Tomorrow, I got me a long day. I had fun doing this, though. I always like coming on here. I always see my regulars in the chat, which is cool. Really like you guys. And a couple of you new guys, too. Really, really cool. I really wish I knew Chinese, because this one guy who showed up, he's put some nice little jewels here in the chat. If I knew how to say your name, I would say it, but don't think that I didn't appreciate you showing up in the chat, because it was really cool. The rest of you guys on there, really cool. Am I going to try a British saber anytime soon? I would love to. I kind of like European sabers, so I'm hoping to get my hands on one sooner or later. Though if I do want, I kind of want to get my hands on a French one. Not necessarily because I have anything against the British. I don't. But it's a personal thing. I have Haitian. My parents are Haitian. I'm a Haitian American dude. So that right there kind of ties me a bit to the French. Even though we sort of look at the French like, yeah, we kicked your ass and got our freedom from you. But at the same time, it's still kind of interwoven into the culture, and I have a love for the Three Musketeers and things like that. So having a French saber would be cool. From the early 1800s or something like that. That would be cool. From the Napoleonic era. That's actually one of the reasons why I liked playing Assassin's Creed Unity, because I got to run around France chopping people up with a saber. Though then later on got the latest higher weapons you could get in that game looked nothing like the type of weapons you would use it I don't want to go into another rant. But yeah, I would like to get my hands on, like, you know, either a British or a French saber at some point. That would be really, really cool. All right. Oh, somebody was asking, where can you get that practice sword? You talking about this one? Def Jibs? This is from LK Chen. If you're talking about this one, it's from LK Chen. Just go to lkchensword.com and you want to look up the lkchensword.com, the come on, Hanjin and don't know. God, I hate it when I don't know where I'm going. Yeah, this is the sparring Hanjin. So that's this. That's what this one is. Don't know what the price is. I gotta click on it to find out the price. And it brought me to a link that has nothing to do with the price. Ah, it's $100. It's basically going. It's just going for 100 bones flat. So that's not bad considering what I've seen for these. Yeah, 100 bones flat. These I'm pretty sure are more than that. I don't feel like going to look right now, but if you can go to the website, you can look it up yourself. So, but yeah, thanks for. I know I do my live streams at very odd times during the day and all that, so I appreciate you guys showing up. I'm hoping, of course, people will get to watch it later, you know, on the channel and have fun watching that. Oh, Midas Gold, I missed your thing when you said you've been making 3D models lately, interested in the details of my dream sword. Hit me up on my email so I can talk to you. Or maybe I might send you my Discord name so you, we can talk on that. Because I would, yeah, I was thinking about, I was actually thinking about doing a video where I kind of like put my sword together and I would have to like get pieces from here and there and do it through paint.net. But if you can make a 3D model of it, that would be cool. Are you talking about 3D model as in polygons, or are you talking about 3D printer? Like, I'm thinking you're talking about 3D polygon stuff, right? Because that's what I was thinking. Like, you could like show it on the screen, and that would be really cool. Yeah, get in touch with me. I would really appreciate that. So, and yes, Unity ended up being a better game than I thought it would be. It still has some of its flaws, but overall, I liked it a lot. So, I should talk about Unity. But anyway, yeah, I'm ranting. I need to get going. Thank you guys very much for showing up. Thank you guys for the conversation in chat. I really feel so bad about this. I wish I knew your name. I need to learn Chinese so I can learn your name. In fact, I'm gonna butcher his name. Watch, and I'm gonna feel really bad doing that. I don't want to butcher his name. Google Translate. I'll enter the text and see what it says. I mean, it says in English it means human him, but generally Sanka, I don't. That's not Japanese. It's supposed to be Chinese. Anthem of Humanity. Renle Zhonga. I can't. I'm not going to butcher your name. I am not going to insult you by trying to completely butcher your name. But yeah. Yeah, thanks for showing up, because you posted up some really interesting things that I think I should be looking into, particularly on the sword market in China and what it's really like. Appreciate you dropping that. God, and of course everybody else, old and new guys showing up. Thanks for showing up in the chat. It's a nice little, you know, fun little tiny one. I'll catch you guys later. Maybe the next time I do this, if it's not an unboxing, I need to do another gaming one, because that's always fun. And I still need to turn out the other videos that I actually still have working in the background. So, but yeah. Yeah, that's the translation, but I'm trying to say with the Chinese name. I don't, because if I just would say, hey, Humanity's Song of Praise, thanks for showing up, he's gonna, huh, what? But if I say his name, then he'll know that I'm talking about him and I'm thanking him. Hopefully he gets to talk to him. Anyway. I'm still rambling. You guys take care. Have a good night. See you guys later. And stay warm. This winter storm is kicking our ass, isn't it? So, take care.